hanging out in my garden on this beautiful day, and I thought I would come on and talk about creating Curvy Girls Can't Date Quarterbacks. So this is my most read title. It's sold over 100,000 copies, and I've heard a lot of feedback on it over the years about how it's helped women grow their self-esteem and feel more confident in who they are at any size and demand what they deserve from a loving relationship. But when I was creating it, it definitely wasn't anywhere near that big. It was just an idea in my head. And so I thought I would give you some of the backstory around that. So let me back up to about 2018, 2019. I published my book called Abby and the Boy Next Door. And this is a very real, raw story about a teenage girl who is learning to overcome trauma and accept herself, and she changes her body and she loses weight over time, and she learns which habits are helping her and aren't helping her. And I had so many women reach out to me about that book and say they loved seeing a woman who looked like themselves. And a lot of them related to Abby's struggle with self-worth and weight loss and weight gain and all of these things that bigger women experience. And I thought, this is a story that's really untold, and it's so much part of my history, because growing up, I grew up in a small town and I played sports and I did all the things, and I was like a size 12, size 14, and I was very strong and muscular and athletic build, but all my friends were like size 2, size 4, size 8, and I was the biggest one there, and boys called me fat and picked on me, and the girls sometimes were mean about it, or it was just kind of like an uncomfortable subject that we didn't talk about, that I was so much bigger and I couldn't share their clothes like all the rest of them could. And I grew up feeling so out of place in my body. I felt like my body was wrong. Like, if my body could just be smaller, that I would have these boys interested in me, and I would be able to share the cute clothes with the other girls, and I would feel more comfortable in myself. And as a young reader, we, as a small school, so we had a very small library, and the romance section was limited, and there definitely were not any romance heroines who looked like me, who didn't have like beautiful long raven hair and soulful green eyes and willowy thin and tall. And so all these women I read about falling in love weren't like me, and I was really at the point where I was like, is this possible for me? Is there going to be a boy or a man who can love me for me? Am I going to have to settle for someone who's unattractive, because only unattractive people can like bigger people? Like, all of these thoughts were running through my mind as a 17-year-old. And it's not like they just went away when I turned 18 or 19 or 20. Like, some of these beliefs were deep-seated, and I carried them into adulthood with me. And as I thought more about it and more about how Abby did, I realized I need to tell this story, and I want girls who are like me to have this story. And so I started thinking about what it would look like for the curvy girl, the bigger girl, to get the guy in a high school setting. Would that be revolutionary? Would it feel revolutionary? And to me it would, because all of the really cute guys at my school, the quarterbacks, the football players, the ones who all the girls liked, they liked the thin, skinny, pretty girls. And it would have been revolutionary for one of them to go out with someone like me who was in a bigger body. And so I just started dreaming. I was like, what would this look like? What would this take? How would everyone around them react? And it was a lot of fun thinking about all these, like, what it would have been like for that to happen to me, and how a girl in my shoes would have felt. And I really wrote the story that I felt like 17-year-old me needed to read. And I've heard from a lot of girls that, and a lot of women, that they wish they would have had it in high school, and that they're sharing it with their daughters and their nieces. And I love that so much. And so I came up with a story, and it was in my head, and I knew I wanted there to be like a best friend group, because that was something I always wanted too, was like this group of ride or die friends who was there for you through anything. And so I thought about this friend group and what they would look like, and I thought about these girls and what they would stand for and what they would overcome. And I knew they were the Curvy Girl Club. I knew that they were going to come together and love each other and support each other and truly be that unit for each other. And I was at a conference in Vegas, an author's conference, and I was talking to one of my author friends, and I was like, I'm just not sure what to name it. I want it to be something really good, and I wanted to highlight what it's all about. And she threw out this idea of us Curvy Girls Can't Date Quarterbacks, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. And so we've built a whole series based on that title system. Curvy Girls Can't Date Quarterbacks, Curvy Girls Can't Date Billionaires, Curvy Girls Can't Date Cowboys, and it's grown so much, and I know that there are so many more books that I could write in the series. And so many women have been inspired by the friendships and by the self-love, but also by the reality of it, because I feel like a lot of people want fiction that centers plus size heroines to be completely positive. Like, these heroines don't have second guesses or insecurities. And for me, that wasn't my reality. Like, if I was a teenager and I read this book about a teenager who just automatically loved her bigger body, I wouldn't have been able to relate, because I was in such a place of self-loathing, honestly, for my size. And I think it makes it more relatable. Like, oh yeah, Rory and the other characters sometimes struggle with their weight. Some of them are more confident than others. Some of them are less confident, and you know, those ranges happen in all sizes of women. And so I really wanted to make sure that it felt authentic to that high school experience. And I didn't want it to just be puffy, like, oh yeah, she's big and she loves herself and everything's fine, because the truth is, for some of us, it's harder to come by that self-love and self-acceptance when we've heard all of these negative things about ourselves and our size for our entire lives. So that is kind of where the concept of this story came in. And then the creating of it was so much fun and so understated, if that makes sense. I was working full-time in marketing at a private university, and I knew that I wanted to be a full-time writer. That was the goal. And so I made a deal with my husband, and I was like, hey, I'm going to go to a coffee shop and write Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and then Saturday and Sunday mornings for 4 hours at a time. And my husband thankfully was like, yeah, go do it. We figured it out, and those were my writing times. And I would sit down, and for the 4 hours I was there, I would just write as fast as I could. and this story poured out of me, and over time the girls' stories came to me too. And I didn't send any of them to my editor until I had the first 4 books done, because I wanted to make sure that that friendship was really solidified before I started sharing the books and releasing them. And I even hired a consultant. I won a free consulting with Claire Taylor, who runs FFS Media, and we talked through the Curvy Girl Club and Curvy Girls Can't Date Quarterbacks and what it would mean and how I can really signify that in some of the work. So she gave me some ideas on how to make that come to fruition in the stories, and I tweaked from there. And then 2020 happened, and I was laid off from my job at the university, and I was not ready to be a full-time author yet. I was not making the kind of money that I was making at my day job, and I was quite frankly panicked. But I tried really hard to believe in myself and in these stories. And I got with my editor and I was like, hey, I know we weren't set to work together for another few months on these books, but is there any chance you could squeeze me in August? And she said yes. Luckily, she's like, absolutely, I'll move things around. She has always been my biggest cheerleader, Trisha Harden. She works with me on each of my stories. She started with me on Loving Sky, so I think she's edited at least 20 of my stories, probably more. And she was like, absolutely. And she read it and she was like, I think girls are gonna love this and they're going to need this. So we got it edited, I published it, And then my Facebook ads died. Facebook stopped allowing us to send ads to Amazon. And I was like, oh no, I want people to read this story, but how am I going to spread the word? Because I've been primarily using Facebook ads. And so I hired another consultant to help me and train me on Amazon ads. And we used those for a while until the Facebook ads started working again. And it's really just been a labor of love, continually sharing these books, continually finding ways to pitch them to readers, because I know that these books matter, and I know that they need to be seen and that the story needs to be told. And so I'm thankful to you, because I'm assuming if you're watching this, you've read one or maybe all of them, but I'm thankful to you because you're part of helping spread that word. And well, my dog knocked over the table. He didn't knock it over, he jumped up, he wanted his toy. Real life out here. So yeah, if you've read a book or if you've picked it up, you're part of spreading this message of self-love and acceptance, and it really means the world that you're here. So if you have any other questions, drop them in the comments and I will be more than happy to answer them. Okay, bye.
I'm feeling happy, and moments ago I was only empty.